So first up, Jalen Hurts. Ryan got him at number 1. I have him at 7.
Round one, fight.
So it's simple. The Vikings defense is kind of horrible versus quarterbacks. Last season, they gave up the sixth most fantasy points to QBs. And in the first game, they let Baker finish his QB 13. He had 2 passing touchdowns, should have had 3 because Mike Evans dropped one. And Baker has thrown literally 2 touchdown games in the last year. I mean, come on. How does they do that? How is Baker perform better in one game they did all last season? And it's because his Vikings defense sucks. Jalen Hurts is a top 5 quarterback. His offense is going to explode. I thought they were rusty last week. They were in the rain. This is in Philly. It's a primetime game. I actually think both offenses are going to explode because both defenses are really banged up. Key injuries on both sides. It's just gonna be a shootout. Jalen Hurts to me is just gonna exploit this offense or exploit this defense.
You're right. They looked rusty. This Eagles offense looked really rusty. There's very little chance that you're going to bench Jalen Hurts this week. And if you follow our rankings, he's sitting at number 1. So you're not benching him for anyone if you're looking at that. But looking back at week 1, Hurts did not look good. He did look super rusty, missed a bunch of open receivers, only threw for 170 yards and 1 touchdown. The offense really underwhelmed. Maybe that had to do with they were playing the Packers, and that's a good defense.
No, we were playing the Pats.
Packers.
The Packers. No,
yeah. My bad. Yeah, you guys were playing the Patriots, and that is a good defense. So maybe that had a little bit to do with it, and the weather had a little bit to do with it. I just don't know if they'll have it all together, knock all of the rust off in such a quick turnaround. This is a Thursday night game. I tend to stay away from guys on Thursday night. Yeah, you're probably going to have to play him, but I really don't want to. And he didn't run the ball a lot, even in the rain where he wasn't throwing well. I would want him to run a little bit more, carry the ball for 4.1 a carry. In comparison, last season he averaged 4.6 a carry. I'm just not putting in all my faith that he smashes and finishes QB1 this week in such a short week. Keenan Allen. I have him at 6 and Keoni has him at 24.
Round 2, fight.
Targets are earned. All right, let's start there. Keenan Allen saw 29% of the Chargers targets in week 1. To put that in perspective, Austin Eckler and Mike Williams each had 16% of the Chargers targets. So clearly Keenan Allen is still Herbert's favorite target, even in year 4 together. This was a shootout, a game where they needed completions, and Allen was that go-to guy. He caught 6 passes for 76 yards. That's just going to be his regular stat line this season, I think. He's still just a guy that gets open, gets receptions. No one can really stop him from doing that. And on this high-powered offense, he's going to get lots of shots in the red zone, and he's going to catch some balls and come down with some touchdowns. There's just so much good that can happen this week. The Titans gave up the second most fantasy points to the wide receiver position in week 1. The team that gave up the most, the Chargers, who Keenan Allen can't play against himself. Olave, who played against the Titans last week, he finished wide receiver 10. Rashid Shaheed finished wide receiver 12. And Michael Thomas almost made a return to fantasy, finishing as a wide receiver 37. Keenan Allen is going to have a huge week against that defense. He's going to make light work of them. So yeah, I got Keenan Allen as wide receiver 1 this week.
Dang. Well, I agree that the Titans defense is not very good, and especially not as good as the Dolphins defense, which the Chargers and Miami had kind of a back and forth game. Their game of the week. It was my game of the week last week. It was just a great game of football, came down to the end, all that sort of stuff. And as you said, in that game, he had 6 catches for 76 yards, but no touchdown. And he finished as the wide receiver 22. And so while he is getting the majority of the targets, a lot of the targets, as he has earned, I will agree with that. There's so many people that Justin Herbert can go to on this team. And in fact, in week 1, he went to 8 different pass catchers. And along with Keenan Allen, you have guys like Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, Joshua Palmer, Quentin Johnson, Gerald Everett, Donald Parham, and that's not even all of them. So Jay Herbs spreads the ball around, as is the will of many a Chargers offense in the past and currently. And in doing so, that gives more opportunities for other of those guys to end up catching the touchdown, like Donald Parham or, an Austin Eckler who found the end zone, although I think it was on a run, but still. If he gets those numbers again, it's going to be much closer to wide receiver 24. Now, I think he can potentially perform a lot better than wide receiver 24, but also the position is so deep with a lot of young, versatile, and let's be honest, just like random guys at the position, that it almost looks like you're staring at the Mariana Trench, how deep the wide receiver position is. So there could be a lot of guys who finish before him just because they get a random touchdown or whatnot. And so I think he needs to get a touchdown to do that. I can easily see him not getting a touchdown this week. He's not going to go the whole season without touchdowns, but I can see him not getting a touchdown for 2 weeks in a row to start the season. And if he does, he's not going to be a top 1 wide receiver.
All right, last fight. Saquon Barkley. Ryan has him at 1, Keoni at 12.
Final round. Fight.
Okay. The Cowboys absolutely spanked, embarrassed the Giants, worse than, I've seen in any other team be embarrassed in quite a long time. I mean, it was a shellacking. They took him out to the woodshed, all that stuff, 40-0. It wasn't even fair. It was the epitome of that Simpsons meme of the kid crying and just going, stop, he's already dead. And that was by the first half.
Are the Giants playing the Cowboys back-to-back weeks?
I agree.
They also just pissed me off and probably a lot of other people off because they couldn't even score one lousy touchdown. And, if they had, I would be 4-0 in leagues heading into week 2. But, whatever. They failed at their job. So hard. They might as well have been Pee Wee flag football. But Saquon did okay. He had 51 yards on the ground, 3 catches. But as a whole, I have a lot of questions about this Giants offense and a lot about that Giants O-line. They allowed 7 sacks. That's ridiculous. That is, and I know the Cowboys defense is very different from the defense that they're going against this week, but I mean, you allow 7 sacks. That's not good at all. It leaves me with questions about this offense and this O-line, and Saquon can do, only so much by himself without the help of an O-line facilitating, making holes, doing all that. And if the O-line is not going to be good, I don't see him finishing as a running back 1 on the week. I can see him finishing as a top running back, like I have him as an RB12, but without the help of the people around you, you're not going to do as well as what you need to do RB1. And that's what the biggest thing about it is, not his performance as much per se in week 1. It's the team's performance and that O-line specifically. And you need that as a running back.
So that was all great. That was a great argument. Listen, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't. I mean, if you look at the Cowboys game was a blowout. We agreed. Embarrassed in front of national television. It was horrible. I turned the game off at halftime. Right? I didn't even pay attention. 12 for 51 versus the Cowboys defense is very, very good in a blowout. Still got 3 receptions. Now you're going against a defense last year that gave up the fourth most fantasy points of running backs, and last week let Brian Robinson get RB14. Saquon Barkley and this offense can explode on this Cardinals defense, right? And not just, I mean, I'm not even just talking about the Cardinals defense, the Cardinals as a whole. The Cardinals offense didn't score a touchdown. They gave up so much opportunities to the Washington to give fantasy points. I don't know why they kept giving the ball to Curtis Samuel so much. They shouldn't have done that. Jahan Dotson looked open all the time. Sorry, I'm ranting. That was like, I lost. It hurt my feelings. But listen, Barkley is the number 1 running back, the number 2 pass catcher, with Waller also talking about his hurt hamstring. And if something happens to Waller, you're talking about the number 1 passing option now in the offense, going against John Gannon, who has struggled against running backs as a DC for the Eagles and now as a head coach for his first game with the Cardinals. And the Cardinals defense, who's worse than last year, who gave up the 4th most fantasy points. They literally traded away or lost, or JJ Watt retired, some of their best players on the defense last season and are starting people that no one knows. This is a blow up week for the Giants. I'm predicting the bounce back.